12 people go off into a room. 12 different minds, 12 different hearts, from 12 different walks of life. 12 sets of eyes, ears, shapes, and sizes. And these 12 people are asked to judge another human being as different from them as they are from each other. And in their judgment, they must become of one mind, unanimous. It's one of the miracles of man's disorganized soul that they can do it. In most instances, do it right well.
Hello there. Have you stumbled into an open manhole recently? Do you find yourself in the company of strangers? Well, then you might very well be in the feature underground. Every single week, we review a new movie currently streaming on Criterion channel. This week, we will be reviewing Anatomy of a Murder. I will now proceed to read the synopsis of said movie. A virtuoso James Stewart plays a small-town Michigan lawyer who takes on a difficult case. The defense of a young Army lieutenant, played by Gazzara, accused of murdering a local tavern owner who he believes raped his wife, Remick. This gripping envelope pusher, the most popular film by Hollywood provocateur Otto Preminger, was groundbreaking for the frankness of its discussion of sex, but more than anything else, it is a striking depiction of the power of words. Featuring an outstanding supporting cast, with a young George C. Scott as a fiery prosecutor and the legendary attorney Joseph N. Welch as the judge, and an influential score by Duke Ellington, Anatomy of a Murder is an American movie landmark, nominated for 7 Oscars, including Best Picture. I should also introduce the people talking, which would be myself, Hunter Lanier, and
me. Hello, William.
To start, I'm going to say that typically I do not like courtroom dramas. They're, along with coming-of-age movies, they're one of the movie genres that actively annoy me.
Okay.
I don't like that they exist. 2 reasons. They're filled with they tend to be a lot of exposition, a lot of people just explaining things.
That's true.
2, they tend to be kind of, I would say, hokey, in that they tend to be very morality driven, like they're defending someone.
Yeah.
And they can be a little schmaltzy.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the big like courtroom confession I always think is kind of a corny.
Right. Yeah, and the lawyer with his big monologue at the end.
Yeah, this one especially, you got the like down home country lawyer.
Yeah.
Versus the big city.
Yes,
the big city
yeah,
guy.
it fits well into that convention.
I think I like courtroom dramas. Okay. We realized earlier I've only seen like 3 of them.
Yeah, maybe that's why you like them.
Yeah, that's true.
But this one I do like, and I think it avoids those. Well, it doesn't. It's still very exposition heavy, but it's not as morally.
Yeah, I think that's also kind of helped by how long it is. Weirdly, because I feel like I did notice there were a lot of kind of exposition dumps. God, I can't talk.
Mm-hmm.
But like they get that out of the way early, and then the last like hour and a half of the movie is you know what's going on, and it's once we actually get to the courtroom, I was a lot more engaged.
And the people. So this movie actually does a lot of really cool, smart things that eschew a tradition, or and eschew your expectations given certain things. And so like one of them is the casting. So they cast Jimmy Stewart, who at the time was seen, and today is seen as a very all shucks. Because he was sort of, if people don't know, he was kind of like the Tom Hanks of his era.
Okay.
He kind of played those types of characters. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, those types of things. He was always the good guy, kind of bashful, And he plays the defendant, but the person he's defending is a soldier, but there's a little bit of him and his wife. There's some question as to what's going on there.
Yeah. Especially at the beginning of the movie,
Right.
They're definitely there's something going on.
Yeah, and all the characters in the movie, unlike typical courtroom drama, which has very obvious moral characterization, this movie is a little more vague in can you trust them, can you not trust them, which is interesting because the movie is the case seems kind of clear cut to me.
Yeah, it is pretty straightforward. Like there's some ups and downs of like them figuring out like exactly what happened, but it is like you said, it's pretty clear cut. Which is where like I was expecting a twist, because especially from the beginning in the movie, the defendant and his wife are both portrayed as like they seem like manipulators for sure. Like
they seem like they're up to something.
Yeah.
And especially, his wife. There's a scene where where Jimmy Stewart comes back to his office.
Yes.
And she's in there, like she's listening to his music, and also throughout the whole, she's in the movie she's been raped, but she doesn't seem like she's that upset.
She's like fine.
Yeah.
And she's like flirting with him.
She's like having a good time.
Yeah. When I was watching that scene, I was like, oh, she did it.
Yeah. The fact that the movie sets it up that way, it kind of engages you more in the movie because you're kind of like leaning forward, like what's going on.
Yeah. That's kind of the experience that I was looking for at the beginning. Like it doesn't actually turn out to be that, but it was I was very much like, okay, it's a puzzle. Like
that's not a mystery. The case is fairly clear cut, and the movie I think is mostly about digging into the minutia of a simple thing. And I didn't see it this way the first time I watched it, but this time I really saw it as just kind of two lawyers dueling in a courtroom, and they each have their own tactics. I think George C. Scott talks about like a smokescreen tactic at one point.
right, yeah.
There's the great scene where he's blocking Jimmy Stewart's view, and the way it's filmed is really cool because you see Jimmy Stewart like trying to peek out
around the sides.
He keeps like moving in front of him. So that's the way I saw it this second time I watched it, and it almost made the movie more fun to see it that way.
Yeah, that stuff's great. And I like the dynamic between Jimmy Stewart and other man.
George C. Scott?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
A lot. Like it feels like a sports movie or something almost. Like it's about like that kind of competition.
A big part of the movie is, and this came up in the synopsis, which is especially at the time, Frank's discussion of sex and the whole rape situation. It's a fun movie to watch with modern eyes. One, because the movie is very self-aware that it's kind of being naughty.
Right.
But it doesn't quite come off that way anymore. But it's still fun to see it kind of reference itself in that way. There's the scene where the judge tells everyone to stop laughing because someone mentions panties.
Yeah.
And everyone in the courtroom can't help but laugh, which is very obviously a
fourth wall break.
Yes. It's written for the audience in the movie theater at the time who probably laughed when they said panties. Because that wasn't something. It's really not a word you hear anymore. You don't really hear that word that much in movies.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be scandalous.
No, but and then the other going off that same thing, the other scene I really think is funny is when the judge and the three lawyers all gather together at the stand and try to think of some other word for panties.
And nobody can do it. Yeah.
Mr. Bigler, you finally got your rape into the case. And I think all the details should now be made clear to the jury. Do you agree, Mr. Ludwig?
Absolutely.
What exactly was the undergarment just referred to?
Panties, Your Honor.
Do you expect this subject to come up again?
Yes, sir.
There's a certain light connotation attached to the word panties. Can we find another name for them?
I never heard my wife call him anything else.
Mr. Bigler?
I'm a bachelor, Your Honor.
That's a great help. Mr. Dancer?
I was overseas during the war, Your Honor. I learned a French word. I'm afraid that might be slightly suggestive.
Most French words are.
You said you really liked Drunken Buddy of Jimmy Stewart?
Yeah, he's great. So that's kind of I really love like the very beginning of this movie, and I love the actual courtroom stuff. Some of the lead up to the trial I think it just gets kind of slow. But yeah, like there's a lot of stuff right at the beginning of this movie where
the introduction of the character is
really
well
strong. Yeah. It's super like quaint and wholesome, and like they just seem like good friends. They go fishing, and they drink in his living room while he plays piano. I don't know. It's really nice.
Speaking of the fishing, that's another great lawyer tactic that you see Jimmy Stewart's character use.
He like makes friends with the judge.
Yeah, where he clearly like puts the fishing thing as the bookmark in that law book.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember if I talked about this already, but the casting of Jimmy Stewart in this movie was really clever because of his all shucksness that he was known for.
Right.
And to have him play, so when you see him on screen, you're like, okay, this is the good guy. But then as the movie goes on, you start seeing that he he just wants to win.
Yeah, and he's really aggressive by the end of the trial. Like, it kind of he dials it up over the course of the trial, but by the time...
Yeah, and there's the scene in the beginning where he's talking to the defendant for the first time, and, you know, he asks him something like, well, why did you do it? And he's clearly like trying to get a certain answer out of him. He's trying to lead the guy down the road to get the answer he wants. And the guy says, you know, I must have been mad. He's like, well, anger is not a reason. And the guy's like, well, maybe that was crazy.
And he was like, hey, wink, wink.
Yeah. Okay, we got there.
Well, I must have been mad.
How's that?
I said I must have been mad.
Well, bad temper's no excuse.
Well, I mean, I must have been crazy. Am I getting warmer?
But there's a lot of stuff like that, where just like subtle manipulation of.
He's a schemer.
Yeah. And so you don't expect that from Jimmy Stewart, which is a fun casting thing that the movie does.
Yeah, I don't have the Jimmy Stewart context to have gotten that, but I love him in this movie. He's really good.
And then we didn't talk about the jazz score yet, which is a notable thing.
Yeah.
Not
what you would expect.
No.
For sure.
No. It's Duke Ellington, which they didn't really do that a lot in movies, where you would have kind of it's not stunt casting, but kind of just a well-known musician
doing the stuff.
Do the music. And he is in the movie, which is cool.
Yeah. Get to see him play with Jimmy Stewart, which is fun.
In addition to the movie going into the theater of the courtroom,
right,
and how presentation and the words used can sway a jury just as much as truth can. And there's a great line where the defendant leans over to him after the judge tells the jury to disregard something, and the defendant says something like, "How can they disregard something they've already heard?" And Jimmy Stewart was like, "They can't. And it's such a great moment, because that's when you really start to get the sense that, okay, this is a movie about tactics.
Yeah.
This is some kind of chess game is happening right here.
What's great about that too is then later on in the trial, the prosecution kind of like catches on to what they're doing and starts doing the same thing, where they're trying to paint his wife as like a, you know.
Right. Yeah, it's one of their tactics, sully her character in any kind of way they can.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing I want to talk about is the opening credits, which are designed by Saul Bass, who was to this day is one of the more interesting graphic designers that was involved in movies.
Yeah, I noticed that it felt kind of modern, that whole opening credit sequence.
Well, it has kind of an abstract modern art style to it.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, like, I don't mean this to be derogatory, but it's the kind of thing that they'd put at like the beginning of a Marvel movie or something, where it's a bunch of like little collage.
Yeah, well, his style was paper cut. He would do like paper cuts, and he did the posters too. He would do posters.
Yeah, or like James Bond is a nicer example.
Yeah, he did a lot of Otto Preminger movies, and then he also did Hitchcock movies, and then Kubrick. He started working with Kubrick.
Right.
And I think Martin Scorsese brought him out of retirement in the '90s to do Goodfellas.
Oh, really?
Goodfellas.
I did not.
But he's one of the more interesting graphic designers ever in movies. Like his opening credits are very obviously him once you've seen those movies.
Yeah, and it's a really cool opening credit sequence.
Yeah.
I actually thought the ending was a little bit weird for me, because I mean, we talked about like there are no like black and white characters in this movie, and the defendant and his wife definitely are not painted as like the heroes. But once the trial ends and he gets off and like there's everybody cheering for him, this movie does feel weirdly kind of like pro revenge killings a little bit to me. Yeah.
In what way?
I don't know. Like I said, like he wins the trial, everybody claps and cheers and hugs him. And then, they go off, they get divorced, whatever. And then there's a moment where Jimmy Stewart and his friend are going back to the trailer park where they lived. And they're like, well, everybody got their justice. And it's like, no, he killed a guy.
But I think what that does that I really like is that it just goes further in kind of the gray morality of these people. Like they won. That's what they're happy about.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's fair.
That's what they care about. But I do like the ending because it just pushes you further in the direction of these two people were, not on the up.
They don't care at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they just
Because and also there's the big scene where they bring in the convict that he's in prison with.
Right.
Who tells him the story about that he told her he was going to kick her to the curb as soon as they got out. and then that's what he does.
Yeah, and like presumably, like maybe he actually did say that. Like it seems like.
Yeah, and then they find her shoe there, which insinuates that maybe she took it off and threw it at him.
Right.
That's
yeah.
what I thought. So yeah, I do love the ending in that sense. And it does there's a great, going back to the music, at the very end when there's the end, the title screen.
Right.
The music does like a weird screeching.
Oh yeah, it's like
Remember that?
it's like a clarinet or something, and it's like squeaking.
Yeah, it's like
I remember that.
in like a non-rhythmic way, in like an awkward, like uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's very, very like avant-garde, like weird jazz.
Yeah, which goes further in the idea that you should not necessarily be cheering at this movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's something that's wrong that's happened. All right, we will now proceed to do our top 3 all time, forever and ever, across the universe, galactic,
multi-dimensional top 3 list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Start with you, William.
Okay.
Number 3.
I've seen not very many.
You've seen
courtroom
3,
dramas.
right?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna cheat.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say. I'll say this is my number 3 since it's not really a courtroom movie. My number 3 is The Favorite, by Yorgos Lanthimos,
Okay.
which is not a courtroom drama, but there is a court.
And it's a room.
It's called a court, technically, and it actually is.
Is it a food court?
It's not.
Okay.
But that's The Favorite is like I think actually one of my favorite movies.
I
I
do like the movie a lot.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I really love.
Are you looking forward to Poor Things coming out later this year?
I'm actually really excited.
Which we will do a press screening review of.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
Okay.
But yeah, Olivia Colman and Rachel Weisz are awesome in that movie. And
Is there maybe a lawyer you can find somewhere in the movie? Small town or otherwise?
Yeah. I think Jimmy Stewart plays a small town lawyer in that movie. Actually.
He's like 140, right? Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, or like, well, he's from the 50s, so he's like negative.
Oh yeah,
something.
That's confusing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I love that movie.
All right, my turn. My number 3. I actually didn't order mine. Damn it. I'm gonna go number 3. Anatomy of a Murder.
Okay.
It subverts a lot of the aspects of courtroom dramas that I dislike. And I didn't talk about this, but even the exposition stuff in the movie, I think is well written and well acted enough. And there's usually something interesting happening with the camera that I can forgive the exposition.
Yeah, that's fair. And it didn't bother me either. Like I said, I got it slows down a little bit for the like 1/3 mark, but it's still, it's not like that stuff's a slog to get through.
Oh, also I'm gonna take this moment I just remember a line in the movie that I liked. Remember when he's talking to the woman that you find out is the daughter of the guy who was killed?
Right. Okay.
And they're in the bar, and he's kind of giving her the spiel about, I don't think there's any like good people who are all good or all bad. People are many things.
Right.
I think your father was many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great line.
That was.
Okay, let's go to your number 2.
Okay. My number 2 is the 3rd courtroom movie I've ever seen, including this one, which is My Cousin Vinny.
Yes.
I don't have a lot to say about it. I think I watched it when I was maybe like 13. Funny movie.
Joe Pesci.
It's got Joe Pesci in it.
Yep. Marissa Tomei, great accent.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of great accents in that movie.
Yeah. Marissa Tomei, great comedic actress.
Yeah.
She never really did that much comedy after that movie. I think she won the Oscar, didn't she? Researcher? Yes. Yeah. You don't see many comedic performances win Oscars. That's very rare.
That's true, actually, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My number 2 is going to be a movie called Judgment at Nuremberg.
Okay.
As the movie might suggest, this movie is
about
about the
the
Judgment at
Nuremberg
Nuremberg.
trials, yeah.
The morality in this movie is a little more obvious than Anatomy of a Murder.
Okay.
Because you're dealing with the prosecution of Nazis.
Sure.
But the movie actually does really dig, I don't want to say uncomfortable territory, but like territory that is morally confusing, because the movie is about the defense of people who were aligned with the Nazi Party.
Okay.
And the idea of at what point down the chain of command do you become culpable for war crimes. So if you're just following orders and they'll say they're gonna kill you, does that alleviate some of the responsibility? And so the movie gets into that argument in a really thoughtful way that I think other movies would be a little more blunt. They'd be more of a blunt instrument. This movie's a little more of a scalpel approach, and it makes it more interesting. And the movie has a really great performance, including one from Montgomery Clift that's especially good. Yeah, that movie it's really intense, but a really fascinating movie about a really difficult subject.
Right.
Came out in 1961, and it has like a really great cast too. It's one of the last movies of Judy Garland's career.
All right, my number one then is going to be Trial of the Chicago 7, which I actually did like. I thought it was pretty good. Some people get kind of annoyed with Aaron Sorkin dialogue. I think that stuff's fun. I like it a lot.
Yeah, people's criticism of him a lot of the times is that all of his characters sound like Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's a big deal.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
To me, if writing is good, it makes everything else okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, overly clever characters. I think that stuff's fun. And I also think that that might be one of the least Aaron Sorkin things that he's ever done. Like, I actually do think that movie has like very distinctive characters.
Okay. I never saw it, so I can't really say.
Okay. Well, yeah, but there's like you have like college students and then like activists, and it's like a kind of, I don't know. It has, I think it has very distinctive characters, and they're not all just the same guy.
Okay.
I like that movie.
My number one is going to be a movie called Breaker Morant. This is sort of a unique spin on the courtroom drama because it takes place in, I think it takes place in South Africa. It's about the Australian Army, but it takes place in kind of like a makeshift army courtroom area. It's just like kind of like a room, like a bare room, but it's regarding a certain troop of military dudes. What are they called?
Military dudes. Yeah, you got it.
Military dudes. Yeah. They decide to execute some prisoners, and the movie gets into the morality of war and kind of like Judgment at Nuremberg, the chain of command when people become culpable for crimes.
Right.
And when just following orders ceases to be an excuse. The characters are really well written and really thoughtful and really layered to the point where even the guys that did the crimes, they have arguments that you start to you can see that they make enough sense to where you understand them, and they're not obviously written as bad as just kind of black and white villains.
Yeah.
And that one's an interesting courtroom drama because there's also kind of a lot of war photography and different things happening. So if you don't like the idea of being stuck in a courtroom, that's a great courtroom drama to watch.
Okay, nice. Yeah, you sold it earlier. I definitely want to check it out now.
Yeah, that one's really good. I believe it is on Criterion Channel. So those are our top 3 favorite courtroom dramas. Let us know what yours are in the comments. Then be sure to like the channel or like the video. Do you like channels? Do you like videos?
I like channels.
What's your favorite channel? 42?
Yep.
Okay, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I believe this is going to be an audio-only YouTube video, but we do usually have video. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. What else are we on? We're on Facebook and all the social medias. I'm not going to name those because I don't know the names of them. And I think that's all for us. It's getting a little sweaty in here. But before I go, I have to remind you that every day underground is a good day.
You fought the soldier by yourself. You've been drinking alone, Polly. I don't like that.
Drop the stone, Counselor. You live in a glass house.
My windows have been busted a long time ago, so I can say as I please.